Thanks everybody for joining us today. We have an exciting video blog about a recent project that we did with the Council on Foundations, as well as Candid, related to the CF Insights transfer. And we're excited to talk to Ann Mei Chang and Kathleen Enright and hear their thoughts on this.
Hi, Laura. It's great to be with you. I'm Kathleen Enright, President and CEO of the Council on Foundations.
I'm Ann Mei Chang, President and CEO of Candid.
Great. Thanks for being here today. So the first question is, given all the shifts in the philanthropic and nonprofit landscapes over the past few years, how did you assess your sort of organizational readiness to even consider this type of collaboration?
You know, this conversation came at a great moment for the Council. We had our new strategy in place. All the key leadership positions were filled. We'd also done a lot of work internally to upgrade our systems and processes and understanding about responsibilities. So we had a good understanding of our absorption capacity for something like CF Insights. So with those basics in place, we could think bigger. We could seize the opportunity to better serve our members and the field.
Yeah, and from Candid's standpoint, I think the first thing I would say is, I think the Council and Candid are both larger organizations, so we're in a privileged position of having a little bit more in terms of financial resources and staff bandwidth to manage something like this than smaller organizations. So I think we both recognize that that's not possible for everybody. And from our standpoint, we had a healthy financial balance sheet. I was a relatively new CEO, and we were looking for ways to better focus our resources for the long run. And first and foremost, we wanted to think about our mission and how we could best serve our mission. And so as we thought about, in the long run, how are we going to best be able to serve our mission? It felt like having the Council take on CF Insights would be in the best interest of the sector.
I just want to echo what Ann Mei is saying about being in a stable financial position and how important that is, because sometimes when we get folks approaching us about doing some kind of collaboration like this, if they've waited too long for, their finances might be in a shakier position, it puts a lot of pressure on the process. And so I really want to commend, and encourage folks to think about these things before, or, when you're in a strong financial position, you're operating from a position of strength then.
Go ahead. Jump in on that a little bit? Just to add from the Candid perspective, so Candid had CF Insights as a product, and the transfer was to the Council. And from our standpoint, the financial consideration. So unlike asset transfers in the private sector, where you get paid to transfer an asset, our intention here was to have a kind of financially neutral transfer. And from the Candid standpoint, the impact on us was that this was a net. This is a profitable service for us, and so we had to absorb some financial downside in our current fiscal year as well as kind of future years, and sort of be comfortable that we felt like we would be able to make up that gap.
It's a really good point.
Well, at a high level, the Council now has the full assets of CF Insights, including the data. We are running the website. There's an annual survey that we'll conduct, and a big benefit from our perspective was that we brought on the key staff person from Candid who had previously run CF Insights, Dave Rosado. So from a technical perspective, there was a little bit of money that changed hands, but it was the pre-raised or committed membership dues dollars for CF Insights, where the services had not yet been provided. So Candid transferred those dollars over, and we will continue to provide the benefit and the service to the members who've already paid.
Elaborate on that a little bit. I think a lot of people have that question from a financial perspective. I'm always asked, like in interviews, about, so what was the financial deal here? And again, the intention here was that this was financially neutral from a transfer perspective. And so the only money that changed hands was really more from a administrative perspective. Like we received revenue, and that deferred revenue was transferred to the council for the period of time where they had ownership and responsibility for the product.
Next question is about the challenges just in having the time to negotiate these kinds of transactions. So could you talk a little bit about leaders who might be concerned about even going down this path because folks are busy and having the bandwidth to do this can be a challenge?
Can start because I think my answer might be shorter, which is yes, doing any kind of asset transfer like this takes a lot of bandwidth. In this particular case, I think the vast majority of that bandwidth was taken by the council because they had to do the due diligence and the modeling to make sure it made sense for them. Certainly, it took time from our team to participate in the negotiations and to go through all the the communications and finance and other work that needed to be done to actually effect the transfer. But I think more of the burden was borne by the council from a staffing perspective. And I think as a CEO, there's always a lot of demands on our time, and so I think we all have to be very strategic about where we put our time. And again, I felt like this was a really strategically valuable move in serving our mission so that this product, CF Insights, would get into the hands of more community foundations that could benefit than would under Candid's leadership.
I'll just say that, no matter if you've ever been part of a merger or an acquisition before or done a really deep collaboration where you needed some facilitation, they're all different. And so we found it incredibly helpful to have a third-party facilitator who know their stuff and could guide us through the process. So my advice is to bring in the experts, someone like La Piana, because we couldn't have gotten through it without them. I'll say that because of La Piana, Ann Mei and I were able to stay at the big picture level. They helped a core staff team negotiate, the deal points. They worked out the timelines. So when we were together as a full group, we had really highly productive conversations.
In a collaboration like this, the staffs and boards have needs that need to be integrated into the final decision. What advice do you have for folks who are trying to weave those needs into the process? Like, how did you sort of address that issue?
The amount that a board will want to be engaged will really depend on a lot of different things. First of all, the size of the organization, the stage of organizational growth, the size of the deal, all of those are going to be factors. So in our case, I brought the conversation to the board early on. I also invited one of our board members who had a lot of experience in mergers and acquisitions to just join us for some of the front end conversations. And I think her expertise, her presence likely gave the board a bit of additional confidence. But in the end, the board just created some first principles, some parameters for me and the team related to things like financial sustainability and our absorption capacity. And within those parameters, they left the decision up to me. So I guess my advice would be just to get clear on the roles and the responsibilities and decision-making authority on the front end, just so the board and the staff's expectations are aligned.
I agree with Kathleen. Sort of keeping all the key stakeholders informed early and often, I think, is key. We also informed our board pretty early on. In our case, our board wasn't actively involved in the details of the transaction, but I think they were pretty comfortable in understanding the parameters that we're working with.
Another key stakeholder group there, Laura, that I'll just mention because Ann Mei has a large staff team. The council's got a complex set of folks too, and so there was a lot of work that needed to be done internally, particularly from our perspective, because we were going to be taking on something new for the planning and execution across a bunch of different, parts of our organization. So operations, marketing, membership, the web folks, they all had their hands in this. And so from the get-go, getting clear that this project's a priority, that it's going to take time from a lot of folks, and that we just, we needed to make sure that we were all aligned. That was a pretty important piece.
One of the things that I think often happens in the cases of an asset transfer or merger is that it's super secret, right? And it's a very small circle of people that know. And we carefully managed across the council and Candid sort of that circle of who was in the know, because we have some overlapping stakeholders. But one of the things that I was really pleased and delighted by, and I think is unusual, is that we were able to involve our key staff member from the get-go and throughout the process. And I think that really helped because he had the in-depth understanding of the product, of the issues that we would need to consider and so forth, and his incredible professionalism in being able to participate in that discussion, knowing that it could affect his job and livelihood, but still being incredibly professional in helping us figure out what was the right path forward.
Yeah, and keeping that focus on the mission and wanting the community at large to have access to those resources. I think that there was, very much both organizations were very focused on what's best for the community. How can we set this up in a sort of mission-focused way? Everyone wants to know about the impact of collaborations like an asset transfer. How are each of your organizations measuring success in the transfer of CFI from Candid to Council on Foundations? And how does it impact each of your organization's strategy?
From Candid's perspective, this was very simple. A primary metric that we looked at for success was, would this tool, CF Insights, that we think is a valuable tool for community foundations, be accessible to more community foundations? Because we felt like there were valuable insights that could be gained that would help community foundations in their operations, and we wanted to get that out to as many people as possible. And so the reason that this transfer to the council made sense is that the council was really doubling down on their service to community foundations, relaunching their community foundation conference, really building up the community of community foundations that they were working with. And so we felt like they both had more channels to community foundations and the opportunity for more efficiencies of scale, being more of a one-stop shop to be able to have community foundations serve multiple needs in one place than we would be able to.
Well, I couldn't have said it any better than Ann Mei just said it. That's our metric too, is getting this set of data and tools into more folks' hands so that community foundations can make even better decisions for themselves so that they can best serve their own communities.
Everyone always learns something different from these processes, and I'm interested in what a takeaway that each of you have had from this experience that you'd like to share with the field, especially in light of sort of wanting to encourage folks to consider these kinds of transactions.
One of the best benefits of this whole process for us was the strengthened relationship with Candid and with the team. So our organizations went through something together. It was deep, it was sometimes challenging, and it built trust. So that was a real benefit and something that'll enable us to think about other ways that Candid and the Council on Foundations can better serve our sector. The second one was just, going back to that North Star, because both of us, both Candid and the Council, are living into this commitment of being purpose-driven, of being field-focused. We were able to get aligned pretty quickly.
From Candid's perspective, a lot of this was about really taking that kind of field-first approach and looking at what are the things that we're in a best position as Candid, and are the expertise we have, the resources we have, what are the things that we are best served to provide to the sector, and what are the things other organizations might be better served to provide to the sector. And so, I think taking that sector-wide view, thinking of us all as, trying to serve a common mission and making those, in the case of Candid and the council, making the social sector, the philanthropic infrastructure work better for all people who are working in this space. We felt like it was really important to prioritize double down on the work that we are doing, where we feel like we have a we're in the best position to deliver to the sector and help bolster the efforts of others where they are in a better position to deliver things. And so I know that that's a difficult thing to do on a day-to-day basis. Many organizations don't have the resources and breathing room to be able to make those decisions. But I think when an organization is in that position, when we have enough breathing room to be able to think a little longer term, I think looking at kind of the long-term destination of where we each want to end up, where we can each have the biggest impact in the sector, can often lead us to making choices like this.
That's great. Well said.
Ann Mei has brought up a couple times about the capacity needs to be able to think in this way. So if we want our nonprofit sector functioning at the best possible, capacity, we need for nonprofits to have more breathing room. We need for them to be able to think from a purpose perspective and not have it be a zero-sum game. So there's a lot of things that foundations can do in service of that. They can give general operating support. They can make sure that they tell their grantees how reliable the revenue is that's going to be coming to them. And then they can also specifically support mergers and strategic alliances as a capacity. They can, provide some resources to get that done. So, I think that there are ways in which we can encourage our sector to think a little bit differently about how we best serve our communities.
I agree with that. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah,
you all too.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.